Good evening. This is Justice for All. I'm Gene Mitchell. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. My friend Barry Barasset's not here. He's at his granddaughter's 8th grade graduation. She's a valedictorian. My buddy John is off in Chattanooga. His son Drew is competing for the state championship in track tomorrow. But I am here with my very good friend Sam Edwards. Sam and I have known each other because he prosecuted cases against me for a few years. Now Sam has opened up his own shop, and he's headed into doing family law, which is quite the service. And this is a good guy. He's his own man. He doesn't do stuff that just because people tell him to. He does it because he thinks it's right. And Sam, where is your office located?
So I'm located at 714 North Spring Street, so just right up the road.
Okay. And did I say that right? You're going into family law is going to be the main focus? Now, I saw you in criminal court today.
Yeah, well.
So if someone gets arrested and they call you, you're going to help them, right?
It was collateral. They had a family case too, so yeah.
All right, and you've already told me that you're going to represent me on my red light ticket.
Sure, why not?
All right, well, very good. So, this is the part of the show that we do the Barry Barasset small talk. And with that in mind, I would like to say congratulations to my dear friend Sean Didoff, who graduated from Pensacola State. Sean, if you know him, he's a special guy. And we got to see him walk across that stage the other night. Also, my friend Dr. Spain, I'm sorry I lost you at the Civic Center. Anyway, it was a great night. We've got a good show tonight. We're going to talk about 3 cases that were reversed recently. That would be Harvey Weinstein, Alex Murdaugh, and what's going on in the Mangione case. And also Mark Furman passed away. So we're going to talk about his role in the criminal justice system. So we've got a good show for you. Now to break.
Housing practice coordinator for Derek Jones Facial Plastic Surgery. Dr. Derek Jones is amazing. He's double board certified, he's skilled, and he's been doing this show with Blab TV for almost 2 decades. If you're looking to grow your business, Blab TV has an amazing reach in this local viewing area. We always hear, we saw you on Blab Television. I'm Andrea Housen with Derek Jones Facial Plastic Surgery, and I am Blab TV.
I see a fearful, anxious 12-year-old girl who turned into a beautiful, optimistic, hardworking, talented, creative young woman who's not afraid to advocate for herself. Yeah, I'm just super proud of you. I don't have no doubt in my mind about the next version of yourself that you're gonna be.
I see a beautiful soul, a hardworking mom, and someone that loves her kids and would do anything for her kids. And I just love you, Sarah.
I love you too.
Hi, this is Sunshine. Make sure you tune in every day, Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock. We've got what you need. Information that is power right here only for you on Sunshine's Corner and Blab TV.
Is it time yet?
It's time.
First starting time for dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Well, I'm looking good. Thank you. Just became a Real ID. What's the plan? Impromptu road trip? Actually, the plan is to fly to New York for today's product launch, and then visit the family in California, and cap it off with a girls' weekend in New Orleans. You really can just do all that. Sure, I'm a Real ID, so I'm good to board any domestic flight. Speaking of which, gotta fly. Nice, enjoy. I'll be here.
Be your Real ID self today. To learn how, visit tsa.gov/RealID or your local DMV.
I'm Kathy Holsworth, Artistic Director at Pensacola Little Theater. Join me on the first Monday of every month at 7 p.m. for the Center Stage, where me and my artistic friends talk about all things on the stage and at the Clark Family Cultural Center. Join us, won't you?
The bravest person I know is definitely my dad, 100%.
My friend Sean.
My daughter Cynthia, and she was in the United States Army.
One of the bravest things he ever did wasn't when he first enlisted, it was when he found his first support group.
Our journey has not been easy.
One of the bravest things he did was when he asked to move in with me and my mom.
I felt like I was lost, and you gave me a place to stay.
When he decided he was going to go back to school after 23 years.
It was the better part of my life that I spent in the Marine Corps. Transitioning out, it's a difficult thing.
She went on foreign soil. She went to war. But the bravest thing she did is when she asked for help.
So I really appreciate it.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time.
Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. He won't say it back, but we're pals.
I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
All right, this is Justice for All. I don't know what you guys at home have seen, so I'm going to go over some things, and I want you to just treat this like this is the beginning of the talk show. This is Justice for All. I'm sitting here, which means that Barry is not here. Mr. Barossett is at his granddaughter's graduation. She's a valedictorian from a local 8th grade class, and my good friend John is off in Chattanooga, where Drew, who is newly committed to the University of Alabama to run distance cross country and track there, is competing for the state championship in Tennessee tomorrow. I am joined with my friend Sam Edwards. I've known him now for a couple of years. Sam has been a prosecutor here locally. Now he's come to the good side. He defends cases. I saw him in court today, and I said, hey, you know, Barry's not going to be around. John's not available. Can you please come and have dinner with me tonight and do the talk show? And he's been kind enough to come along. What I always say is that the show is better when you guys call. The show is better when you send us text messages. You know, we're not skilled in being on the television, but we are trained in trying to answer questions about criminal cases. It is stuff that we work on and we think about a whole lot. One of the other things that I wanted to say, just in case my friend Larry Downs is watching, Larry Downs, he was on the program with me a couple weeks ago. Larry Downs is the gentleman that had called me, and he said that he had gotten one of these camera tickets. That's my little white car right there, and I got it. And when Larry called me, he was so adamant, the way that he gets, about wanting to fight this camera ticket. You know, and the gist of what he had to say, and Larry's a plumber, you know, do you know Larry Downs?
Yep.
He's the punching plumber.
Yes,
he won Pensacola's Tough Man competition three years in a row.
Okay.
Or 2 years, but then once in Mississippi. And, you know, where he was coming from was, you know, this is not fair because they don't know that I'm the one driving the car.
True.
You know, and I poo-pooed it. I said, Larry, go pay the darn ticket, you know, and he did. But I don't know if you saw this, Sam, but a month or so ago, some judge in Broward County found these camera tickets to be unconstitutional for the very reason that the punching plumber said.
Yep.
So now I get one because that's the way karma goes, and I feel like I owe it to Larry to fight the darn thing. And so I'll let you guys know how this works out for me.
Just on that note briefly,
yes, sir.
I did traffic tickets for quite a while when I was originally in.
Will you represent me on this? I'll buy you lunch.
Sure.
My man, all right.
One of the biggest arguments we had as defense attorneys was the confrontation clause.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have a right to confront a camera. I mean, you can confront a law enforcement officer that pulls you over. And we were successful moderately with that argument. Eventually they changed the law, this and that. But I think that is the constitution.
There's exactly no proof that Larry is the one driving that car, or that I'm the one driving that car. Right?
Agreed.
I mean, that was where he's coming from, you know?
Agreed. I mean, it's his registration, but you don't see a picture of his face. You can't identify him. So I agree.
And as my lawyer, you would absolutely prevent me from saying on television that I am the one driving that car. Okay. All right. So there's
I
that.
can't stop you from that.
Very good. The other thing that I want to say is I want to say a special congratulations. I went to the graduation for Pensacola State College the other night. Okay. I went because my friend Sean Diedoff was graduating. Sean is a special piece of Pensacola, but the night was great. The Civic Center was packed. This is the part of the show that we call small talk. We talk about local stuff.
Okay.
So.
Join the exciting world of television. Blab TV has an opening for an aggressive media consultant to help local businesses with their marketing needs. Blab TV pays some of the highest commissions in the market and provides the sales tools needed to succeed. I'm Director of Sales, Rick Wenzel. If you're an aggressive person who won't take no for an answer, send me your resume today.
Oh, hi. I suppose you're wondering what an A-list celebrity like me is doing in a place like this. You must know, I'm saving the world. Oh, hi, Beth. Yep, saving the world again. Did you know that 40% of all the food produced in the United States is thrown away? That means everything that went into that food, the pesticides, the water, the land, was all for nothing. Just look at this perfectly good food thrown in the trash. The pizza with extra Cheerios, these goldfish and Band-Aid tacos. And just look at this perfect trash burger. This pasta dog looks delicious.
You don't have to dumpster dive like Ed Begley Jr. to save the planet. Fight food waste by shopping smart and using what you buy before it gets trashed.
That's way better. Ooh, arugula.
Do your part and find out other world-saving tips at betterthaned.org.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric Bramer.
And I'm Charlie Hobart.
You can tune in Fridays at 5:30 on Blab TV for Wahoos Weekly, your weekly in-depth look at the Pensacola Blue Wahoos on the field and off.
We'll be talking to players and highlighting initiatives in the community that make Pensacola so special.
And when the Blue Wahoos are here at home, it leads right into live game coverage from Blue Wahoo Stadium. That's Wahoos Weekly, Fridays at 5:30
on Blab TV.
Just arrived.
I'm here today because of Tanya's relentless efforts in trying to get me healed. When I came back from the war, I became a homeless veteran. I was barely hanging on by a thread. The one thing that was constant for me was music. Music led me to Tanya. Normally with a veteran, we think we can solve everything. The truth of the matter is we cannot.
I just knew that something was different. Something was off. I let him know that he wasn't alone. There are people that loved him.
And says, Michael, I know you've got a plan to take your life today, but if you give me just 5 more minutes to love you.
5 more minutes, 5 more minutes, honey, 5 more minutes to love.
Michael has actually taught me what it looks like to accept help.
What's this? We need to keep our family communication plan safe in case of an emergency.
Thanks, Tita. Start a conversation with your family and plan together for emergencies.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire. How to control the flames. What to do with hot coals. How to secure your chains. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
I'm Emily Echeverria, Marketing Communications Director for Council on Aging of West Florida and the host of Coming of Age. Watch our show to find out what we're doing for our seniors and their families, and hear from area experts and local business owners about their programs and services. Want to help? Find out how you can work with us to bring a better future to our seniors. Watch Coming of Age, 3:30 p.m. Wednesdays, only on Blab TV.
Where are we headed? Well, I'm headed to Michael's Air Force Academy graduation. Since I'm a real ID, we'll give Michael our best. I'll just be here.
Be your Real ID self today. To learn how, visit tsa.gov/realid or your local DMV.
A little history. When our founders drafted the Bill of Rights, they included the 8th Amendment to prohibit excessive cash bail. They never meant for it to hold people in jail. They knew excessive bail would create a two-tiered system of justice, one for the rich and one for everyone else. Bail routinely traps people in jail before they've even had their day in court. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail, because freedom should be free.
I'd like to talk with you, Sam, and see what you think. You followed this case, Alex Murdaugh. You know who he is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Alex Murdaugh was found guilty of killing his wife and his son. Hey, how are you? And the case was reversed recently. Do you know why? Of course you know why. I'm going to tell you, then I want to hear what you have to say about it. The case was reversed because the court clerk, who in fact was trying to sell a book about the trial, a juror came forward and said, this court clerk, the one that's trying to sell her book, told us to disregard the testimony of Alex Murdaugh. And as a result, you know, this case is coming back. So now Alex Murdaugh, who, you know, at first time a jury determined that he shot and killed his wife and his son, that's going to come back and it's going to be tried over again. You know, it brings home to me the importance of court security, court staff, judges, prosecutors, you know, trying cases, towing the line. Have you had any situations where any members of a jury have ever been, you know, inappropriately interacted with by anything?
The brief story that I had, I was a defense attorney. The case was over, tried the case. It was a not guilty. 6 people on the panel plus 1 alternate, so basically 6 people made the decision. One of the 6 people actually was at Publix. I went and got a Publix stub after the trial. It was still kind of afternoon. While at Publix, the young lady making the sub said, hey, did you know juror, let's say juror 3, did you know that she was asleep while she was in the back in the jury room? Of course, I would have had no way of knowing that. And also alleged that she had been smoking through a vape a illicit substance, which arguably affected her ability to pay attention, especially when she's asleep, and her decision as to guilt or innocence. So this was a real juror that did vote. What I did is I filed a written motion to have all of the jurors interviewed. That motion was denied. I was in some way, I'm not going to say reprimanded, but I was at least slightly reprimanded in that I was told that I should have never had contact with a juror absent court permission. And so I was chastised over that. And my response to that was, well, you know, I didn't interview the juror. The lady was making me a sandwich. She brought it to my attention. And
the juror approached you?
She approached me. I did ask her for her phone number.
But she approached you?
But she approached me, and he said I never should ask for a phone number. But I had to have a way to get in contact with her because I may not ever see her again. I guess I could have got it through the clerk of court. I don't know. But the case never went anywhere. We never got to interview the jurors, and he remained not guilty. But I mean, that's a double jeopardy situation. But that was the experience I did
Well,
have.
I was interested, because you've had a different experience from me in that you've been both a prosecutor and a defense lawyer. I've been a defense lawyer since 1994. I was curious as to whether you might have had a situation where something inappropriately got to a jury. What I had one time, when we select juries, we all think that we're very thorough, and we all think that we're very quick and thorough. I'm never as thorough as I want to be or as quick as I'd like to be. But I did have a time where I picked a jury. And then after we really got all into it, court security, I saw them approach the judge to tell the judge something. And then the judge says, okay, let me have the lawyers come up to the bench. And the judge says, you guys, you left a member of the jury on the panel that doesn't speak a word of English. So I've kind of had that, but that's not really what we're looking for. I mean, we're looking for that case where a Bible gets left in the jury room or, something like that.
I did have one that's more fun. I don't know the veracity of it. I tried the case with another attorney, again, defense attorney at the time. It was a trafficking case. There was a lot of cocaine involved, probably about 4 kilograms. There had been an allegation.
They left the cocaine in the jury room.
They did.
Oh my goodness, I was joking.
And which here in this circuit, a lot of times they will do that. But they kept coming back with questions, which is not unusual for a juror to do. But they were chatty, and the co-counsel of mine was, no offense, he was a lot older than me. I was a young lawyer at the time. He had the bright idea of weighing the substance, and it was in fact several grams lighter.
It was packaged.
It was packaged, but it had been opened.
Oh my God. By the jury?
By the jury. Now, I don't know the veracity of that, but I
don't believe that. That sounds too good.
I mean, he told me the story. He said it's a true story. Of course, that was a mistrial. And I tried
just like from Cocaine Bear or something like that. So, all right, let's do another one. Harvey Weinstein.
Okay.
Okay. All right, now, here's what I think. Harvey Weinstein had a verdict overturned just recently. Did you see that?
Yes.
Right. Here's why I think, and we'll talk about why, but here's why I think it's significant. Harvey Weinstein, if I'm saying his name correctly, he kind of kicked off, I think, the whole Me Too movement. If he wasn't the first, he was one of where this Me Too movement, believe the victim, all this thing really started. And, he was perhaps properly presumed guilty from day one, I think. Well, here this case against Harvey Weinstein has twice now been unable to get to a unanimous verdict. Twice they've had a hung jury and had, and I feel like when you have a situation like that, it's an evidence that the system can work. I had a case where we were getting mail from all over the world because it was an animal welfare, animal abuse type case. And the mere allegation was so salacious, it just looked really bad. And that case was the quickest verdict that I have ever had in a positive fashion. It was a not guilty verdict because once the evidence got to an impartial trier of fact, the right thing happened. And I'm not ready to say that Harvey Weinstein is innocent. I mean, he's certainly presumed innocent, but it's cool that someone like Harvey Weinstein is getting the benefit of a thoughtful jury. Have you ever had a hung jury before?
Yes.
And how did it ultimately? Was it when you were a prosecutor or a defense lawyer?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
If you'd get a hung jury as a prosecutor, what would go into your decision into whether make a compromise or maybe try the case again?
So a little different. Where I worked before here, they had more of a, for lack of a better word, a policy, where if you had a hung jury, it wasn't a first-degree felony, it wasn't a case that merited prison, there were no guns, shootings, no violence, no excessive violence. In a case like that, you would give them an offer that they could not refuse. You wouldn't drop the case, but you would give them an offer they would not refuse. Here, it was a little different, prosecuted a little bit more aggressively, or at least that was part of the mission statement, for lack of a better word, or the protocol. So in here, I would say they would want you to try it again a second time, but after that second time, I don't know that they would want you to spend the resources for a third time. It would have to be like high profile, gun, a very serious case.
Sounds like you started to answer my next question.
Okay.
I was going to say, what's your wager? Do you think they're going to take Harvey Weinstein to trial for a third time? I mean, that's got a lot of attention. He's public enemy number one.
So there's a lot of money involved in this case, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I practice primarily state law.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever even been in federal court. I have worked with ATF. I have worked with FBI. They have that expression, FBI always gets their man. I think there's a different meaning to that to me than it is to other people. What I see from that meaning is, FBI always gets their man. They're coming after somebody. I'm not saying improperly. They're coming after somebody they're going to get him. So my answer to the question would be maybe with the amount of time and investigation and the federal agents involved, maybe.
You've prosecuted sex cases, certainly, yes?
Absolutely.
And you've defended them?
Yes.
As I was looking into this Weinstein, however you say it, and wondering why is it that we have a situation where we have someone so hated, so universally accepted as being, guilty before he ever has a trial? How is it that two juries had a hard time convicting him? And I looked through, and there were things like there's a great deal of time between the alleged misconduct and the disclosure, the accusation. And then there were text messages, things like, I think that the accuser in this case wrote him a message that said something like, "Hey, I've been missing you, big guy," that sort of thing. What would go into a prosecutor's decision in terms of, whether to prosecute a case like that versus try to make the person offer that they can't refuse?
With me, politics. I mean, that case is going to have some politics involved in it, right?
Sure.
Whether you support this particular individual or this particular individual as far as presidency, I think that could have a bias effect on what you're listening to. I could very well see two people, of two different political mindsets getting so heated and so unfocused on what the relevant facts are that you would get a mistrial. So the politics of it, I think, would be a deterrent for me in prosecuting it continuously.
Have you come to know David Rimmer?
Okay.
Excellent guy.
No.
Very good. So David Rimmer was a prosecutor here for a long time, a judge for a long time. I actually saw him at the ice cream shop 2 days ago. Super dude, right? He runs, he's a really good distance runner. I remember a time where David Rimmer had a case that I don't think he felt was the strongest. And when he tried it, he merely presented the evidence. He didn't really make any argument. He pretty much just presented the evidence. And I haven't had the opportunity to ask him this question, but I would imagine that was a situation where he had some compulsion, whether it was by an alleged victim's family or otherwise, that he had to put this in front of a jury. Have you had, we now have this Victims' Bill of Rights, the Victims' Rights Amendment, I don't know if, yeah. When you were prosecuting cases, did you have times where you felt like, you had a witness that desperately wanted you to handle the case one way, and you had to say to them, well, look, I'm charged with being the expert on what to do here, and I understand this is what you'd like me to do, but I'm going to do something differently? Or what weight would you give to a witness in terms of how you prosecuted a case?
Meaning like a victim?
Sure.
I'm going to look at each case individually. If I have a victim that I don't believe, that's going to be something that's going to keep me away from the case. If I have a victim that wants to pursue prosecution on something that I don't think is meritorious or something that I think is a waste of courtroom personnel time as well as the government's time. Those are all cases where I would not be afraid to go to somebody, write a letter, and speak with them and say, hey, look, I just don't think it's going to be worth it to go forward with this.
Yep. You know, we're kind of talking about the presumption of innocence, and we're kind of celebrating that, you know, somebody as universally disliked as Harvey Weinstein seems to be getting the benefit of the process. As I was reading about this, you know that this isn't his only time where he's gotten a reversal. Did you know that? He had another time where he was convicted and the case was reversed because some similar fact evidence came, some bad act evidence came in. How would you handle if you had, you know, someone like Harvey Weinstein and you had a witness that wanted a jury to know that not only had he done this, but he had done some things in the past? What sort of conversation would you have with your witness about something like that?
So we're talking about Williams Rule, right?
Sure, okay.
Similar fact evidence. We're talking about evidence that the defendant did a different type of act, but kind of similar, either against this victim or another victim, and that shows a propensity for guilt as to this particular case that's before the jury.
And if all it shows is propensity, then it's not supposed to come in.
Well, what I was getting to is, generally speaking, on Williams Rule evidence, I am going to stay away from it for one reason. Most of the time, it gives you a good appeal, and I don't want the case to come back. If I feel it's something that I can prosecute without the Williams Rule evidence or similar fact evidence, I'm going to prosecute it without it.
You know the way similar fact evidence was taught to me, and see if, you know, where did you go to law school?
I went to law school at Florida Coastal.
All right, I went to law school in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
I want to see if this was put to you the same way. If you're charged with killing your wife by drowning her in the bathtub,
okay,
and 5 years ago you stepped on a spider and killed it.
5 years ago, prior to killing her?
Prior to killing your wife by drowning her in the bathtub.
Okay.
If 5 years earlier you stepped on a spider and smushed it to death.
Okay.
That's not relevant.
No.
All right. On the other hand, if you're arrested and you're charged with killing your wife by drowning her in the bathtub, but over the past 5 years you've been married 5 other times, and during those 5 marriages, guess what? Every one of your wives has died because you drowned her in the bathtub. That's doggone relevant. That's how it was taught to me.
So that is going to be a situation where I don't even see that as similar fact evidence, but in fact it is.
Thumbprint.
But I mean, it is. But I mean, that's identical. I mean, that's not similar.
Shows
that's
modus
identical.
operandi. Shows pattern. Shows method.
And I'm assuming that, you know, there's some sort of insurance policy or some other motive, you know, that comes in there with those 5 victims.
Well, it looks like Mr. Weinstein has more litigation to go. Got another one for you.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. All right. Did you follow this Mangione case for the guy that shot the big wig in the healthcare industry? It got a lot of attention because he was on the run for a few days.
No, sir.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, a good-looking guy in New York. He, you know, it was filmed. I mean, it was shown on television. He pulls up on a bicycle and in point-blank range shoots this big healthcare executive. All right. And he was on the run for several days in New York. And law enforcement found him in a McDonald's, right? And today there was a suppression hearing, or at least the newspaper article was about it today. I stand corrected, it was just in the past couple of days. So law enforcement comes up to him. They talk to him. He's sitting in the McDonald's.
Says he didn't want to talk anymore.
He answers some of their questions, okay? Then they grab him and they dig in his bag and they find a notebook where, you know, basically a manifesto, kind of, you know, how to do this and how to do that, and they find a gun. Interestingly, the statements that were made, you know, because he was detained and he wasn't read any sort of warnings, like on 1 Adam 12, you had the right to remain silent, blah, blah, blah. The statements were ruled to be not admissible, and some of the things in the backpack were not admissible, but some are. And, you know, my thought would be, you know, if these law enforcement come into a McDonald's and they see the guy, he's, you know, everyone knows who he is, and they detain him and they arrest him, I would have thought that, shoot, every single thing in that backpack would be admissible as some sort of search incident to an arrest, but I'd have to see the order, you know.
I mean, I agree with that. I'm looking at it differently in that I would hope that there would be a warrant in a situation like that, a warrant for arrest.
Sure.
The person is arrested. Once you're arrested, I mean, it's not an inventory search. It makes those items evidence. So I agree.
You know, with regard to statements, how would you analyze this? If law enforcement detains somebody and they ask him or her some questions, well, now the person has answered some questions that probably implicate themselves. And then, after the person's answered a few questions, law enforcement then goes and reads Miranda warnings. And at that point, the person goes on and answers some more questions. I've always felt, and I've never been successful with this argument, I've always felt that the questions that are later on answered after Miranda, are so tainted by the earlier questions that they also ought to be suppressed. Have you ever agreed with that or felt that way? I mean, you have the advantage on me because you've been both a prosecutor and a defense lawyer.
Well, I have to walk through it in my head.
Sure.
So the person is detained. Miranda's not read. They're definitely conducting an interview. He's not free to leave.
He's not free to leave.
He's giving statements that are potentially incriminating.
Not free to leave. He's asked questions, and he hasn't been Mirandized.
And he's giving statements that are incriminating.
Right.
So file a motion on that, and likely those statements are going to be suppressed.
Sure.
And your question is, if Miranda is then subsequently read or immediately read, are those statements, are those going to come in? The law is yes, but you're saying, well, it's already been tainted. So what do you mean by tainted?
Well, I like this phrase, you know, fruit of a poisonous tree.
Okay.
You know, if I make statements to law enforcement that they've collected from me inappropriately, they've had me detained, they've asked me questions, they haven't read warnings to me, and I'm answering all kinds of questions, and then they say, hey, wait up, Gene, listen, we're going to go ahead now and read some warnings. I'm sitting there thinking, well, shoot, I've already sold myself down the river, and I keep on talking. To me, it absolutely seems like fruit of a poisonous tree, to use the term.
Are you talking?
But I don't mind saying, I've almost never win that argument.
Are you talking spontaneous statements, or are they
No.
I agree. If they're going to continue to question him, because my understanding of Miranda is, if they invoke, okay, you're supposed to cease questioning, okay. And remember when they used to say, oh, you want a lawyer now? Okay, well, here's a phone book. Go ahead, call a lawyer. There won't be a phone anywhere around. They'll throw a phone book at you. Call a lawyer. And that satisfied the requirement of calling a lawyer. I think this is very similar. You know, they invoke. They don't want to be questioned anymore. I believe what Miranda stands for is, once they unequivocally invoke, I believe the questioning ceases, but for questioning that relates to, benign questions. Sure. Like, are those your boots?
Yeah.
Well, that wouldn't be benign because those could be incriminating you. But name. What is your name? What's your middle name? What, what they need for booking.
What I guess what I've been trying to say is, you know, when we're in school, we get this phrase, fruit of a poisonous tree.
Correct.
But actually getting, you know, orders because of a judge finding something to be fruit of a poisonous tree, I've had a little bit more difficulty with.
Agree.
Incidentally, you know, this whole Miranda discussion, I always say to folks, hey, wait a minute, we've got a message. Forgive me, I wasn't looking at it. It says, what is your opinion on the Savannah Guthrie missing mother case? What do you think? I'm going to give that to you first.
Well, you're going to have to help me out again with the facts. I don't watch the national news.
Good for you.
The missing mother is, I want to say, a blonde girl. I've seen some of it. You have to help me with the facts.
Sure. The idea is, you have this morning talk show host whose mother has gone missing, and there's some Ring camera footage that it looks like a bad guy is coming on the property about the time that the mother goes missing. He comes on, he's masked up, he's playing with the cameras, and you know, now the mother's missing.
Okay.
We're now on something like day number 110, and this lady hasn't shown, and she's older.
So she's been kidnapped.
Yeah, of course she has, yes sir. And so you even worry, is she even still alive at this point? And I hate to have an answer like this, but I don't know what to think. I hope law enforcement knows something, but at this point, I'm concerned that they don't. And I worry I'm not really answering your question. If you'd like to call and try to give me another one, I'll do my very best.
And the only thing that I would add to their inquiry about that, I've done very few kidnapping cases. A lot of times kidnapping cases, though, they do deal with the mentally ill. That case, the kidnapping case I had, went to trial for sanity. It wasn't a regular trial. That individual threw the woman in the trunk, drowned her, I don't want to upset anybody, harmed one of her pets, threw her in the trunk, and then drove away with her, drove her to the beach, and then came back an hour later after law enforcement was there, because the lady had the cell phone with her while she was in the trunk, so he wasn't a genius, did not take the cell phone from her, came back to the scene, said to law enforcement, hey, what's going on here? What's going on? What's happening? Knowing that he's the one that put the woman in the back of the trunk. So I guess what I'm trying to add here is, with kidnapping and cases similar to that, you're dealing with, in my opinion, most of the time mentally ill people. Does that mean that she's deceased with that period of time? I mean, where are you going to put somebody for that period of time?
Well, she might not be getting her medications and stuff. I guess the best way to answer the question, how do I feel about it? I feel sad about it. But we were talking about Miranda, so I want to say this. Miranda is the warnings law enforcement must give you if they have you detained and they're going to ask you some questions. Yes, sir. We got to go to a break. We're going to talk about Miranda warnings as soon as we come back on Justice for All.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that I would never be able to get over it and that my kids wouldn't have a father. I overdosed on heroin and I lived. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. For the longest time, fear held me back from ultimately being who I wanted to. I found the fatherhood program and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. My desire to change had finally outweighed my desire to stay the same. I felt powerless for so much of my life that it's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. For the first time, I finally feel like I'm exactly where I should be, where I want to be.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, amigo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, amigo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
The Realty Vault isn't just another real estate brokerage. It's a community space where like-minded people grow together. Here, agents learn, clients close, and local professionals collaborate in a newly reimagined 12,000 square foot space. We're building something special for Pensacola. Come see what's happening here at the Vault, where connection, opportunity, and real estate all come together under one roof.
Animal Allies is looking for volunteers, and there are many ways that you can help. From taking care of cats to using your computer and social media skills, any and all assistance is greatly appreciated. We have morning and afternoon shifts every day or help at adoption events. You can even foster a kitty at home. And it counts towards community service hours for bright futures. Find Animal Allies Florida on Facebook and Instagram or go to aaflorida.org/volunteer.
There was that. Now, before we went to the break last, we were talking about Miranda. Miranda versus Arizona is the case that stands for the position that if you are detained and you're questioned by law enforcement, that you must be read some warnings. Those of us that are my age and older, we think of 1 Adam 12, the old television show where they're always, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and used be against you. You have the right to an attorney. That sort of stuff. You know, every now and then there'll be a movement to do away with Miranda warnings. And do you know why that is? You know the best argument to do away with the Miranda warnings? The one they always use?
Judicial efficiency?
Something like that. The number one reason they come around with every so often to do away with Miranda is that nobody uses it.
I don't know about that.
That's what I read. So what I tell people is if you're detained, I mean, law enforcement are our friends. You know, if you see a member of law enforcement and you want to talk with them about a baseball game or whatever, by all means, do so. But if law enforcement comes to you and wants to talk with you, and you don't really want to, the first thing you should do is you should say, hey, listen, am I free to go? And if they say that you're free to go, go, right? If they say that you're not free to go, then you should know that what that means is that in their mind, they feel that they have, the words are reasonable suspicion that you're engaged in misconduct. All right, so if they tell you you're not free to go, then I want you to act like your mouth is broken and that the only thing that you know how to say is your name and may I please have a lawyer. The idea is if you say may I please have a lawyer, then they're to stop asking any questions of you. The reason we were on Miranda is before the break we were talking about a case that had something to do with Miranda. All right, we talked about Harvey Weinstein. We talked about Mr. Mangione. Did you see this situation out? Were you paying attention when there was all the ICE problems up in Minnesota? Were you looking at that?
Of course.
Okay. In the past couple of weeks, 2 people that were members of ICE have been prosecuted in Minnesota.
Okay. And
that's kind of exciting because you don't see very often at all. And I'm going to come across as being a little bit biased here. You don't see very often at all where a federal agent gets prosecuted in state court because there's all these different immunities and protections and stuff. But right now in Minnesota, you have the state elected prosecutor is prosecuting an ICE agent who fired his pistol into a home and then at least allegedly lied about it. This ICE agent claimed that he had been attacked and hit with some shovels, and some video footage has suggested that's just not the truth. And he's being prosecuted, right there in state court in Minnesota. Have you had any circumstances where you had to deal with, a federal agent claiming immunity or anything like that? Because it'll be interesting to see how this happens. My guess is it'll probably get transferred to federal court, or they'll try to. And then, I imagine we'll have some pardons or dismissals.
I agree. I would imagine it would go to federal court. Not personally have I dealt with something like that. I am familiar with law enforcement agencies being sued and then later reprimanded, or if not jailed, for inappropriate conduct, but I have not dealt with that personally.
Yeah. Well, to me, I say chapeau to that state attorney in Minnesota who basically is saying, immunity protections be darned, this guy crossed a line. And this is the sort of case, they didn't do it a whole lot of times, we're talking twice for all that stuff that was going on in Minnesota. But twice now, the elected state attorney in Minnesota has said ICE agents, they're not trained cops, have absolutely crossed the line, and this person has fired a weapon into a home. We're going to prosecute him, we're going to do it successfully. So, there's that. I want to talk about this to see what your perspective is. It's not really a criminal case so much, but it impacts what we do. Have you followed what I think might be the most interesting trial in a long time? Elon Musk is suing. You have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. You said that with so much authority. I feel like you're ahead of me on it.
Well, no, I just know I know you're a fan of his.
Well, that's strong, but yeah, it's right. I'm certainly a fan of the cars. Anyone that ever watches this program hears me say things like, go ride around one of those cars. You can do it for free. They'll let you ride one. It's on 9 Mile Road. You can take one for an hour, and it's like looking into the future, is the way I always describe it. All right, so Elon Musk goes and sues OpenAI. And now, as far as I'm concerned, what OpenAI is, that's ChatGPT. That's how I think of them. And his claim is that he helped fund and create OpenAI, and he did it for all the righteous reasons, okay? He wanted to help humanity, he wanted to do good, and he wanted to do nonprofit, and that he felt that he was tricked. 5 minutes? Okay. Hey, listen, if anyone has a question, call now. Try to stump us. We've had a weird show tonight. And Elon felt that he was duped into giving money to start this, that they, behind his back, turned into a for-profit. Well, he was asking for major remedies. He was asking for $180 billion. He was asking that the head of it get removed. And, the whole thing was thrown out here in the past couple of days on the grounds of statute of limitations. And I thought, my goodness, in our world, a statute of limitations issue is something that gets brought up before trial. Have you ever seen a criminal trial where the statute of limitations was the issue for a jury to determine?
No, sir.
Do you think it's just particular to criminal cases and state cases, or do you think that the facts were such? Could you imagine that we could ever have a state criminal case where a jury would be determining whether a statute of limitations barred a claim?
I would imagine that there was more to it than the statute of limitations.
Well, here's where I was a little bit critical. I'm critical of three things. I'm critical of the whole thing. I feel like this should have been aired out before the trial, I would imagine. I'm critical, but I'm also respectful. All these guys are billionaires, and they're smarter than I am, and there have to be reasons. But, the judge specifically said during the trial, she said, if the jury determines that the claim was made after the statute of limitations has run, she said, I'm going to grant a directed verdict. Well, shoot, why wouldn't there have been that hearing beforehand?
That would have been an issue of fact for the judge, not an issue of law.
Yeah. All right, so that was the first area. Second area, I was critical. That when it was over, Elon Musk criticized the judge on his platform. So I'm critical of him for that, right? 3 minutes? Yes, sir, I'm almost done. But I'm most critical. After the verdict, the judge criticized Elon's claim. She said, I've never felt this claim was... So now, Elon Musk, the richest guy in the world, right? He's had plenty of times where he's been in court cases and he's won on appeal. So if this case comes back on appeal, there's no way that judge can be there again, right? Because she's...
biased.
All right. Here's one other thing.
Okay.
Mark Furman, were you around? You watched the O.J. Simpson trial?
He passed away.
He passed away.
74.
Have you, in your time, have you known anyone who's had a perjury charge, spend any time incarcerated?
As far as law enforcement?
No, as far as anybody. Okay, that's the reaction I wanted. I've got a friend of mine that I care a lot about. He's a goofy nut, but I love him. And he went off, he got incarcerated and if I said more, I'd expose who he is, and I don't want to do that. But all I could think, because I saw this happen to him, because he told a dumb lie, right?
Okay.
And he got incarcerated. All I could think was, well, shoot, Mark Fuhrman lied in the trial of the century. You remember this, right?
Yes, of
I mean,
course.
they said, have you ever said, that's when we first started saying the phrase, the N-word. They said, have you ever said the N-word? He said, no, ever. I've never said the N-word. And then they play it. He impacted the trial of the century by lying on the witness stand. He didn't do it, anyway, he passed away.
Yep.
God, I miss him.
Really what they did is they impeached him.
Yeah.
And they impeached him about 24 different ways. And it was so damning, for lack of a better word, that it was hard for him to get over that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're running out of time, and okay, we got 1 minute.
No questions?
Sam.
Yes.
Will you come back in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'd love
okay.
to. Yeah.
We'll
yeah.
give the people more Sam Edwards in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
this has been Justice for All. Think of your questions. Sam has promised me to represent me on my on my red light ticket. We'll have some fun, and we'll keep you guys updated. And maybe we can have a whole class of Pensacola people that fight these doggone fights. Thank you for watching tonight. Thanks for tolerating us tonight as well.
Thank you.